The morgue worker heard my voice and dropped the sheet. I never thought those words would be about me. But life and death have their strange ways of teaching us how fragile a breath really is. The last sound I remember before the darkness took me wasn't a prayer or a heartbeat. It was my daughter's voice cracking through tears. She kept saying, "Mama, please don't go, please." But my body was tired. My heart felt heavy, each beat weaker than the one before. The doctors had already started whispering things they thought I couldn't hear. "Time of death soon," one said softly. My soul screamed to stay, but my body had given up the fight. And then, it was silent. When I opened my eyes again, I couldn't see light, only shadows. My skin felt cold. The air smelled different, sterile, metallic. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't listen. Panic grew inside me. I could hear the faint echo of footsteps, the squeak of a cartwheel, the soft hum of a freezer door opening. Then it hit me. I wasn't in a hospital room anymore. I was in the *morgue. Someone whispered nearby. A man's voice, gentle, sad. "Poor woman," he said. "Didn't even make it through the night." That's when I realized. They thought I was dead. I wanted to scream, to tell them I was still here, but my lips barely moved. My breath came out in a whisper only heaven could hear. Still, I tried, over and over, until my throat burned and my chest ached. And then a single tear slipped from my eye. I felt it, warm against the cold air. The morgue worker leaned over, frowning, thinking it was condensation. He reached out with his gloved hand to wipe it away. The moment his fingers brushed my cheek, something inside me snapped back to life. My chest jerked. My lips parted. A faint, broken sound escaped me. "Help me." He froze. I could hear his breath catch, could almost feel his fear. The metal tray in his hand clattered to the floor, echoing like thunder in that quiet room. For a few seconds, everything stood still, time, sound, even air. Then, his voice, trembling, breathless, filled the room. "Oh my God, she's alive." My world exploded into motion. Alarms, footsteps, shouting. I was no longer a body waiting for the grave. I was a soul fighting its way back to life. And as the lights above me blurred into view, I realized something powerful. Death had let go of me. But not because I was strong, because I still had something left to do. The room spun around me as my body trembled back into life. I could hear the morgue worker's voice, shouting through the intercom, his panic echoing off the steel walls. "Help someone, she's breathing. She's alive." His voice cracked with disbelief. For a moment, I thought maybe I was dreaming. But then I felt it tear rushing into my lungs. Sharp and painful, but real. The kind of pain that reminds you you're still human. The doors burst open. Nurses flooded the room like angels in white coats, their eyes wide with shock. One of them gasped. She was declared dead an hour ago. The doctor who signed my death certificate stumbled in, his face pale as snow. "Impossible," he whispered, staring at me as if he'd seen a ghost. But I wasn't a ghost. I was a woman who had walked to the edge of eternity and turned back. They lifted me onto a stretcher, their voices trembling between fear and awe. Machines were rolled beside me, wires pressed to my chest, oxygen pushed into my lungs. I wanted to speak, to tell them I could hear everything. But all I could manage was a faint smile. My heart monitor beeped softly, steady, strong. The sound filled the room like a hymn. As they rushed me through the hospital halls, the ceiling lights blurred into streaks of white. I could feel the warmth returning to my fingers. I could feel again. And in that chaos, I whispered a prayer. "Thank you, Lord, thank you for one more chance." When I opened my eyes again, I was in the ICU. Everything smelled like antiseptic and metal, yet somehow, I felt peace. The doctor stood by my bed, still shaken, his hands gripping the chart. "You were gone," he muttered. "No pulse, no breath." "We signed the papers." He looked up at me with tears in his eyes. I've never seen anything like it. The door swung open and my daughter ran in, her face pale and wet with tears. The moment our eyes met, the world stopped. She gasped, her hands trembling over her mouth. "Mama," she whispered, like she didn't believe her own eyes. I reached for her hand, weak, shaking but real. "I told you," I whispered, my voice rough as gravel. "Mama wasn't going anywhere yet." She broke down sobbing, collapsing onto my chest. Her tears soaked through my gown, warm and alive. Every breath she took matched mine, like God Himself had tied our souls together again. The doctors called it a medical anomaly. The nurses called it a miracle. But I knew what it truly was, a message. God wasn't done with me yet. Lying there, with my daughter's hand in mine and the machines softly humming around me, I realized something beautiful. Sometimes life doesn't wait for permission to return. Sometimes heaven itself decides you're not finished writing your story. When the chaos settled and the machines found their rhythm again, I drifted into a strange quiet. My body lay still, wrapped in warm blankets, but my spirit was somewhere else, caught between the living and the eternal. It wasn't like a dream. It was too clear, too real. I could feel warmth, like sunlight resting on my skin after a storm. I heard music soft, peaceful, like a lullaby carried by wind, and then voices. They didn't sound like the ones here on earth. They were gentle, steady, each word soaked in love. "It's not time yet," one said. "She still has something left to say," whispered another. I remember looking around, though I didn't have eyes in the way we think of them. Everything glowed with golden light, but I wasn't afraid. For the first time in years, I felt no pain, no heaviness in my chest. The sickness that had stolen my strength was gone. My body had failed me, but my soul, oh, my soul, was weightless. And then I saw them, faces I thought I'd lost forever. My mama, my husband, my brother. They were smiling, standing in that light that didn't come from the sun. My mama stepped forward and touched my cheek. Her hand felt real, warm as ever. "You've still got work to do, baby," she said softly. "They still need you down there." Tears filled my eyes. "I'm so tired, Mama," I said. "I don't know if I can do it again." She smiled, that same smile she gave me when I was a child, afraid of thunder. "You don't have to do it alone," she whispered. "God's already walking beside you." And just like that, the light faded. I heard beeping. I felt cold air brush against my skin. The warmth slipped away like a dream dissolving at sunrise. My eyes opened slowly, and I was back in the hospital room. My daughter was praying beside my bed, holding my hand so tight her knuckles were white. I watched her for a moment before whispering, "Don't cry, baby. I saw them. They're okay." She looked at me like she didn't understand. "Who? Mama?" "Your grandma. Your daddy." They told me it's not my time. Tears fell from her eyes, but this time they weren't from sorrow. She smiled a trembling, grateful smile. "Then I'm glad heaven changed its mind." I smiled back. "Heaven didn't change its mind, sweetheart. God just reminded it who I am." The nurses said I was talking nonsense, but I knew what I saw. I knew what I heard. Between heaven and earth, I found my purpose again, to tell the world that miracles aren't just stories. They're proof that love never dies, even when the heartbeat stops. The days that followed felt like walking on holy ground. Every breath, every heartbeat felt borrowed from heaven, a second chance stitched together by God's own hands. The doctors came in daily, still shaking their heads, still whispering behind their clipboards. "There's no medical explanation," one said. Her organs had shut down. She was clinically dead. But I smiled, weakly but surely. "Maybe science gave up," I told him softly, but faith didn't. At first, I couldn't move much. My hands trembled when I tried to lift a cup. My legs refused to carry me. But my daughter was always there, brushing my hair, reading me scriptures. praying beside my bed like she was keeping guard between me and the grave. Each morning she'd whisper, "You're still here. Mama, that means God still needs you." And she was right. Every sunrise felt like a gift. I would sit by the window of my hospital room, watching the light spill across the floor. It looked like gold, pure, healing gold. I'd whisper the same prayer every day. "Thank you, Lord, for one more morning." The nurses began to stop by even when they weren't assigned to my room. They said something about my presence felt peaceful. One young nurse told me she'd been struggling with her faith and that my story made her believe again. "When I heard you were brought back from the morgue," she said, "I thought it was impossible, but now, I think God just wanted me to see it with my own eyes." Her words lit a spark in me. I realized maybe my miracle wasn't asterisk for asterisk me. Maybe it was meant to be asterisk through asterisk me. Maybe I came back to remind people that faith isn't about never falling. It's about believing that even in the deepest darkness, light can still find you. Weeks passed, and my strength returned faster than anyone expected. The same doctor who once called me a lost cause now stood by my bed with tears in his eyes. "I've been practicing medicine for 20 years, he said quietly, "and I've never witnessed this. You were gone." I smiled and said, "Doctor, I was never gone. I just had to walk close enough to heaven to remember who I belonged to." He nodded, and for a moment, that hard shell of science and logic melted away. I saw something flicker in his eyes, maybe faith, maybe wonder. By the time I left that hospital, I wasn't the same woman who entered it. My body still bore scars, but my soul carried light. Every step I took down that hallway, I could feel my purpose breathing beside me. I had come back not to prove death wrong, but to prove God right. It's been months since that night. The night the morgue worker dropped the sheet, and the world gave me back my breath. I still wake up sometimes with chills, remembering the coldness of that place, the stillness of that air. But then I reach for my chest, feel my heart beating strong and steady, and I smile. Because that sound, that steady rhythm, is my proof that miracles are real. When I was discharged from the hospital, the staff lined the hallway. Nurses, doctors, janitors, even the man from the morgue, all standing there, smiling and clapping. Some had tears in their eyes. That man, the one who first heard my voice, he came up to me, his hands trembling. "Ma'am," he said, "I almost ran out of that room. But something in me said, turn back." I guess that was God too. I reached for his hand and held it tight. "It was," I told him. "You were chosen to be there. You were the ears that heard what heaven whispered." He cried, big, heavy tears that fell on his shoes. And I cried too, because I knew we were both changed forever. When I came home, I wasn't just alive. I was awakened. The same old furniture, the same quiet house, but everything looked different. The light felt warmer, the air sweeter, every little sound, birds, wind, even the ticking of the clock sounded like praise. Because I knew how close I had come to never hearing them again. I started writing in a journal. Every morning, I'd write one thing I was grateful for. Some days it was small things, the sound of my daughter laughing. Other days, it was big, I'm still breathing. I wanted to remember, always, that life isn't about how long we live, but how deeply we do. And that's what I want to tell you, whoever's listening right now. Maybe you're sick. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you feel like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. I've been there right between life and death, begging for one more chance. And I'm here to tell you, don't give up. Heaven still hears you. Even when everyone else says it's over, it's not over until God says it is. I shouldn't be here today, but I am. Not because of medicine, not because of luck, but because faith still works. It moved through a morgue worker's hands, through a mother's prayer, through the voice of a daughter crying out in faith. So I'll spend the rest of my days doing what I was brought back to do, to speak life, to tell my story, to remind you that if you're still breathing, your purpose isn't finished yet. Because sometimes, God lets the world cover you with a sheet, just so he can lift it himself and say, she's not done yet.